Calling the meeting, the Thursday, September 2nd meeting to order of the Economic Development Commission with roll call. Bill Groves, Commissioner.
Dave
Beth,
McBride.
Commissioner.
Dave McBride, Commissioner.
Greg Melin, Commissioner.
You have laryngitis, Justin?
No.
And also, I'd like to unofficially welcome Michael Whitehouse as a new member. He will be sworn in before the next meeting. In fact, once he gets sworn in, I'll be able to give him all the different tasks that we like to assign to each other. So that being said, Lauren, we have public communications. Do we have? I had two speakers that wanted to address us this evening. I believe is Greg on the line?
Yes, we do have Greg from Advantage Personal Training. I'm going to allow him to talk.
And do we have Michelle from Mystic Army Navy?
That I cannot see.
I did talk with her today, though.
Okay, so Greg, please feel free to share.
Can you guys hear me? Because I can't see myself on the screen. Yeah, okay, great.
Yes, I do hear you.
Okay, so my name is Gregory Drab. I'm a Groton resident, lifelong Groton resident, and also a 21-year business owner. My business for the first 15 years was located a mile down the road, or less than a mile down the road, but it was technically in Stonington. And then in 2015, I moved here in Groton. So my business is Advantage Personal Training. And I guess why I was asked on today was just to sort of share the latest mask mandate and how it's had an effect sort of on our business. We're a fitness training gym right over on Gold Star Highway. Prior to the mask mandate, vaccinated clients had the option of wearing a mask when they're exercising or not wearing a mask. Anyone that was unvaccinated had to wear a mask the entire time they were in the facility. So when the mandate happened, we had put up signs letting people know, and instantly customers were upset because, their world had sort of changed right away. They were shopping on the day before without a mask, and all of a sudden we're asking them to put a mask on. So people got upset pretty quickly, but we did our best to explain it was a new mandate. The impact it's had is I've had members either suspend their membership to say, hey, I'm going to go to the YMCA and work out there. It's a lot easier to work out without a mask. Or they would downgrade their membership and basically not come in as much because they still want to support our business, but they had the restrictions of exercising without the mask. We have tried to be as creative as possible, creating as much social distance as possible. Our other facility is in Niantic, and they don't have that mask mandate, and they're still going on the rules from before. So for me, I guess just the hard part is, I'm 500 yards down the street from the Stonington line. If I go to anything over there, there's no mask mandate there, but then right here, there is a mandate. And, I'm for health and safety. My business is built on health. I guess the disconnect I have is what is the goal here with this? Is the goal for are we looking for health numbers to improve? Is that what we're looking for? Who's monitoring the health numbers for this? Is anyone able to answer or no?
I'm sorry, Greg. Really, with public communications, it's not usually a Q&A, and we're not the people to be addressing those, but we do want to hear what you have to say because we've been waiting over.
Sure. Yeah, I was asking the question because I know Ledge Light's our local health district. And I guess my question is, if the goal is to have, is there a certain percentage of health numbers we need to get to get the masks off eventually? And I guess it just doesn't make sense to me that if Ledge Light's the district, why some of the towns in the district have to wear a mask and other towns don't have to wear a mask. And I just don't feel like it's going to make any impact on the health numbers if it's not everybody, and if it shows numbers wise that the mask is going to make a difference, I'm all for it. I guess I didn't want the impact of customers going elsewhere instead of my business because of this. We were closed for 3 months in 2020. So we're just starting to rebuild, and I don't want to do anything to lose customers at this point. I want to continue to rebuild my business back to what it was before the pandemic. So yes, I guess in conclusion, that was sort of why they brought me in on here today. Sorry, this is my first one.
No. Hey, you know what? I really appreciate you coming on. We encourage business owners to come and bring forth this type of information because that's the only way we can relay it over. We want to be a proponent of the business. And we did hear you loud and clear. And as the meeting goes on, we also will address the mandate from our terms also, but all that feedback is very important to us. So I do appreciate you coming on.
Yes. Now there's hand raised. So am I supposed to click on this for a question or?
Let me just, because we usually for public comment, we don't do a Q&A type of thing because it's really just a forum for you to speak and not for us to make comments. We can make comments when we bring it up on an agenda item.
Okay.
Paige, did you have something to share or outside of that or?
Just to reaffirm, we don't usually respond to comments. However, I did want to make sure that the information provided by the town was in his hands, because I think some of that information was answered in terms of who to contact and also what sort of metrics is the town using. So I just wanted to put that on record. That information was in the frequently asked questions, and we can deal with that later or offline. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Paige. So we're not going to do a Q&A to all the other commissioners. We can address it when we go up. I just wanted to thank Greg again for joining. Lauren, do we have anyone else that wanted to speak?
We do. We have Janet Mayer. I'm gonna
Janet, go ahead.
allow her to talk. All right, Janet, you're all set, but I see you're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Oh, thanks. Janet Mayer, 80 Ann Avenue, Mystic, Connecticut. Good evening. I'm hoping everyone received my email summarizing my speech regarding comments made at the July 1st EDC meeting about those opposed to the Mystic River Bluffs development and PZC. I'm hoping to receive a response from the commission. I'd also like to clarify, I like to be accurate. In my speech, I mentioned that there was no breakdown of percentages on the Mystic Education Center RFP submittals. A citizen had sent an FOI for this information and did not receive the score sheets. Recently, the score sheets have appeared in two completely different documents than the original we saw. So I wanted you to make you aware of this. So what I said last time, I now am updating. Like many others, for months, I've been spending evenings and weekends researching documents related to the developer and his plan, carefully examining town and state documents as they come in after FOI requests, reviewing the Groton POCD and Mystic Oral School redevelopment report, attending and speaking at planning and zoning and town council meetings, reading research papers on TIF, reviewing the AICP Code of Ethics, and studying other developments that have had issues, such as City Place in Burlington, Vermont, and Rolling Greens in North Kingston, Rhode Island, in order to gain insight. Yet, this is not the first time that it's been suggested that we, the citizens, are misinformed, just noise, afraid of change, a small group of NIMBYs, too vocal. The more I hear this, the more I feel obligated to speak up for my neighbors in Fieldcrest and others in Groton, especially those of us who are not well connected. We will continue to advocate for safe and reasonable development, a process that is transparent and seeks community input prior to making decisions, proper vetting of developers, additional oversight, perhaps from the RTM, an examination of costs for remediation, risks, infrastructure, etc., a process that considers zoning prior to binding agreements, and establishment of procedures to avoid costly litigation and setbacks. So I see a clear choice. Groton can continue to push for development for the sake of growing customers without community input, discussion of process, or attention to the town's own research documents, and risk disputes with developers like what we have right now with Restler, and likely risk future long drawn out lawsuits by citizens, as in the case of the Rolling Greens development in North Kingstown. Or we can choose to actually seek input from citizens who have done their homework and seek to achieve safe and reasonable development. Unfortunately, I have somewhere to go now, but I will watch the rest of this meeting when it comes out and keep an eye out for your emails that you send. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Janet. Lauren, any other for public communications?
There's only two other people on the call, a phone number ending in 0221, and then Ken Mayer. So if either one of you would like to speak, you just raise your hand. Okay, neither one has raised their hand, so I think we're good.
Very good. All right, moving on to the next agenda item is the approval of minutes for August 5th, 2021. Any changes, additions that anyone saw? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, old business, and I'm gonna have Craig speak to this. It was on the business forum update. I know that we did have it in the packet. I hope everyone had a chance to take a look, but I know Craig, and for that matter, Bruce has also put a lot of time into this. So Craig, I'll give it over to you.
So as you know, we've been trying to put together a forum. It's been a little bit frustrating in that the world keeps changing, and also people's capacity to do things is limited. And so I think we're at this point where we need to step back and say, what is it we're wanting to do? And then how do we go about doing it? I've listed in the memo that I submitted some of the issues that are making it harder, that made it harder to get the forum in place for now. But I think based on correspondence with a few, including Paige's thoughtful thoughts in terms of how we proceed, I wanted to shift us from the question of how do we get the forum done to the question of what do we exactly want to do, recognizing that there is a clear need by businesses and restaurants for support. So the question is, what's the best way to identify what those needs are, and then what's the best way to respond and offer assistance? So one option is to move forward with the forum as planned, just move it a little bit further in terms of date. A second is to create a more comprehensive questionnaire that might give us more insight into what businesses are experiencing, and then move from there. A third issue, which is related and also related to one of the public speakers just now, is what's people's knowledge of the mask mandate? Because even as I walked through downtown Mystic today, there was considerable variability. Some restaurants and stores had no signs whatsoever. Some had the old understanding of if you're vaccinated, you are suggested to wear a mask, but if you aren't vaccinated, you're required. So we do not have a consistent approach even on the Groton side. And then on the Mystic side, it's also quite variable. And I did, in the context of that one, take some time and can share the feedback. I stopped in on Michelle because I saw her message to us and chatted with her for 15-20 minutes about her experiences and things that she was seeking. But I think we do need to help the town to move forward with whatever the guidelines are, rather than have variability on this side of the river. And I think we need to address the issue of the difference between the Stonington side and the Groton side of the river, because it's creating some issues and tensions up and down the area. And all of those people are constituents of the Mystic Chamber. So at some point, Bruce may want to weigh in on this as well. So those were three ideas I had for how we move forward to address things. and wanted to open up the discussion rather than forcing through the concept of having a.
So Craig, I saw on the form that I had, the initial plan was to do a short survey, and I would assume that's for topic specific, what businesses were, but then you had also the going to a long survey. So could you expand on that?
Sure. The initial survey would probably be pretty close to the one that I put forward for the last month. It had two questions only. One was, what are the major subjects that concern you, so we can make sure we've got the resources available and make sure the discussion follows what people are looking for. And the second one was a query about time, because we've been assuming that 5:30 is the best time. But if we have a very short survey, getting information from others doesn't mean it's a vote, but we could use that as guidance to decide what's the best time to set up a forum. Justin's forum, for example, coming up is, I think, 10 o'clock in the morning. And so we've got at least two different examples of times, and it may not be quote unquote Justin's, but it's the food distributor person. So those were the only two questions on the survey. Paige, in reacting to that, said, we really can't have it might be hard to garner information about the time, but if we're going to do a survey, the last public survey was back in the fall of 2020. There's a lot that's happened since then. Maybe we should be doing a more comprehensive survey. As he put that forward, I had checked with Bruce because he was going to do the initial Survey Monkey because it was a very simple survey. And they have a very limited version of Survey Monkey. And so if we're going to do this, we may want to turn to town resources to do a survey if we do a more comprehensive survey. So that's, I guess, enough of discussion of survey for the moment.
So since Sam, to me, is the expert on surveys and that process like that, what's your comments on that area of doing a more comprehensive survey?
Well, when we do surveys, one thing to keep in mind is that it's never just a one and done thing. We see data collection is just ongoing. You can get some information, and sometimes that gives you more information to do a better survey the next time. So, it may be that I believe Groton Parks and Recreation has a Survey Monkey account. I think if we're given the questions, I believe we can set that survey up, and then it's really a matter of just trying to send that link out to as many people as possible, and just see what you get. We always consider it a very iterative process.
So the way I understand it is if that answers it, Craig, is so the access that the town would have to a more formal account, I guess, for Survey Monkey, you could expand it off. Would that be helpful to what you were looking for? Or?
I was really trying to be responsive to Paige, so we might want Paige's insight into this, because I was comfortable just moving ahead. He'd raised some questions about instead do a much more comprehensive survey based upon not having done this for a year. And so my putting this forward as an option was trying to be responsive to Paige.
Okay. Paige, thoughts?
Just a recap on where we came from in 2020. We had used Nava Retail to really gauge what is going on in the business community in light of COVID. We had people speaking to friends, family, and we were all hearing a variety of different opinions, and we needed to get to the bottom of it. So the survey mechanism we thought was the best way to get basically some answers. And I'm glad we did it, but we did end in the fall. So I envision we would pick up to try to find out what are the top issues, because we're still guessing. And as Craig said, it's a moving target. Is it can't find labor? Is it supply chain? Is it this new mask mandate? What is it? And I think we were originally talking about having the public outreach, the business outreach rather, try to find out what are these top things. If we find out that there are 5 issues, and we could better focus a forum on that. That was the original idea. I was kind of blending the Nava Retail survey with the need for business outreach to try to figure out, we got to get our pulse on, our finger on the pulse of the business community. That was my thought.
So, because I don't really want to hold it up from the standpoint of, and I don't want to rush it either, but it sounds like if we could come up, maybe taking the Nava retail survey and pick up on that, but just do our own type of expanded questionnaire to try to get a little bit, mine down and what the needs are at this point, or what the issues are at this point. Am I hearing that right?
That's my intent. Is that what you were envisioning as well, Craig?
Well, my concern is, and I certainly want to hear from Justin, but my concern is these people are all hurting right now. And so if this delays us considerably, I'm not sure how much value we would get versus something quick and dirty that allows us to just run a forum, hear people's issues, and acknowledge at that forum that, gee, we don't have all the resources here tonight for you, but based upon what we've heard, we'll set up the following forum with and find the experts to bring in to help you. So two different approaches to try to solve the same, they're just different approaches to try to get at the same.
Justin, you had your hand up?
Couple of things. Bruce, Craig, I would love to see a sample of the survey that we're talking about, just so I can look at the questions before we send it out, rather than just sending out something blind.
Okay, sorry.
And second thing is the new challenges I've had in the past 6 weeks, which I thought we were moving to the other side. It's not gotten better. So, and I think I'm not the only one dealing with these challenges. Like the one I am blessed, the one challenge I don't deal with is labor. I know a lot of people are dealing with labor, but there's a lot of other elements that I'm dealing with that were absolutely fine last year and now are an issue. So that's why I'd love to see the questions on the survey.
Second,
Potential survey.
Thanks. George, you have your hand up?
So actually, after Craig, I wanted to throw it back to Bruce. Bruce, thank you for being here today. To get your more introspective thoughts, because you have the database and you almost, to say to many ways, already have the foot in the ground over there on the grassroots level. And the Mystic Chamber also covers the downtown Mystic merchants as well as the Groton town businesses as well. What's your thoughts on what Paige and Craig has said in terms what focuses that you may be hearing that would be number 1 to 3 in terms of priority? Thank you.
Bruce, go ahead.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Bill. And Greg, thanks for inviting me, having me here and being a part of this. I think from the chamber standpoint, we're hearing what you guys have heard and what you heard tonight. On one hand, you have a business who's concerned that the mask mandate is back and is losing business. And then on another, like with Justin, you're hearing that we thought we saw the light at the end of the tunnel and now we're getting further away from that light. And we see the same thing downtown. I think that, there are clearly business owners in Groton who are following the mask mandate. I walked through town today and we're looking at we're walking by the stores, and some clearly have marked that you must wear a mask regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not. And others have not gotten on board. Most likely, I don't think it's because they don't know, but I think, Paige and Craig, you might have a better feeling on that. But I think it's very confusing. And I think it's very confusing for the people who are downtown, because there is a split. Stonington doesn't have the mask mandate, although they're strongly recommending it, and Groton does. I think another challenge for Groton is holding people accountable, and what are the consequences of not having the mask, not having masks in the store, and what consequences happen. And so I know I'm not being very helpful, but there's just some big question marks, and I think that it's in terms of the restaurant and having a meeting, a forum together. It's without knowing when the mask mandate's going to end or what's going to come next. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions and confusion for the restaurant owners and for the businesses, and it's hard to plan and do. Like, we're even having a problem planning events that are indoors. Do we plan an indoor event in December? Is there concern? Do we plan two different indoor events, one that has substantial social distancing and one that is less concerned with that? So I think until there are, if we go into a longer period of unanswered questions, and we want to have some kind of forum with questionnaire with the businesses of what their challenges are, and maybe how we can provide some answers, I think that's worthwhile. But if we see, it seems to be changing every, we're getting updates, and it seems to be changing every couple of weeks. And, without the governor making a blanket covering for the state, I think we're going to have this confusion and big question marks over everybody's head. So that's where we are. We're very confused.
So Bruce, could the chamber then help the EDC and the town of Groton and the city of Groton to some degree, to be the bulletin board on your website to provide that clarity? Because there are more people that visit the Mystic Chamber website than the town of Groton's EDC. And if we can work together and put some clarity in that matter, and you could have it front and center in your announcements, that may help at least business owners in downtown Mystic, as well as other kind of businesses, to have a clarity on this. I think a lot of, to going back to the earlier speaker's comment, I think a lot of people need to know that the state of Connecticut, all 169 municipalities, are semi-autonomous. And the fact that Stonington does what it does is what the history of this state is. Groton is different, the city of Groton is different, and we cannot be saying what's happening in Canada, why aren't we doing that here in the United States? It's almost akin to that. It's not logical that people are saying or are not familiar with the history of the state. To me, I'm surprised people don't understand the history of the state and why the differences. But going back to where we are today, perhaps the chamber can be a locus or a nexus for providing a bulletin on when this mandates change, and even going back to what it is.
Thank you, George, because we weren't really getting on the mandate. We were really trying to address Craig's thing about the questionnaire and doing his forum. So appreciate the feedback. Michael, you have something quick to add to this, or?
I do. I have something for the mandate, but that comes from mandate time. But on the forum idea, kind of from the school of when all you have is a hammer, all the world's a nail. In my coaching world, one of the tools we often use is masterminds, which is bringing people together who are business people, and they basically work on problems together, because many businesses tend to be pretty similar. And the forum concept seems to be like they come to the town for answers and say, Paige, what do we do? Give us the answers, which maybe we have, maybe we don't. But one thing we might consider, and whether it's through the chamber or through the EDC or the town or whoever, but to create maybe a restaurant mastermind. If you don't want to call it a mastermind, call it something else, but something where you bring them in together and they can bring up, like, here's a challenge we're having, getting employees. And someone says, oh, we're actually doing really well. What we found works well is, and actually I didn't realize that Justin was now on the the EDC. So I remember back when we had the forum about the plastics mandate, and I think it was Justin who brought, all the stuff from Manana and said, here's what we're using for packaging, here's what we're using for this, here's where we get it from, here's our supplier, here's, so a lot of people were saying, this is an intractable problem, we have no idea what to do. And Justin said, oh, the answer is this, call this guy. So maybe instead of trying to make it, a one-time come here with all your problems, make it more of a recurring, a monthly event where, and maybe just for restaurants, maybe for all businesses, I don't know exactly what form it would take, but, come in and not saying we have the answers, but collectively, we're a lot of really smart people who know a lot of different things. Bring your challenges, we'll work on them together, as a business community, town, chamber, businesses all together working on that. So that's an idea to consider.
Thank you, Michael. So I guess, Craig, for direction standpoint, because I know that's what you're really looking for, you need to get a lot of here. I kind of agree with your standpoint of let's try to get the questionnaire out there as simple as possible. As I think the biggest problem you're going to have is getting a response, but maybe have it more, you got to list 5 topics, employment, mass, all the, and have them prioritize what's, rate them. And that'll give you a better indication, but try to keep it simple. And then maybe have a more expanded questionnaire that we can give out at the forum or share it to them, maybe get more feedback that way. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, so if I can respond to all of this?
Sure.
One, the survey that I put in last month's material is exactly that. So
Right.
But it's looking for a survey that does what you just said, which is what I thought was reasonable. Just go back to last month's materials. It's already there.
Right.
Second, for Michael, you're newer to the EDC, but the way we talked about this was not the EDC having the answers. It was to do what you're describing. We didn't have a name for it as you do, but it was basically to have various restaurants help you because nobody has all the answers and there may be different answers for different people. So I think we were on track with that. I do want to make sure we get back to the mandate as a separate subject, but for this, I'm not sure if Bill's guidance is what we want to do, then Bruce and I, and actually also the Downtown Mystic merchants, could all 3 put a simple survey out to all of our respective members, get a quick response in a short time frame, and then move forward with scheduling a forum.
I think it's better to get the forum. I understand that we've had a lot of roadblocks between masks coming up and the resurgence of the COVID, all these, but as far as I'm concerned, until we do something, it's all in theory. So I would rather let you go about it that way. But going back to Paige's comments, maybe at that point, try to collect a little bit more because we are kind of, we want to know what they want these forums to be like. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Anyone else have any theories against that or for it, or Justin?
Craig and I, we talked about it in a meeting quite a while ago about having a monthly business forum. And this was prior to us being in lockdown. But even if we did it quarterly, just a quarterly business forum, I think great service that the EDC could provide.
I agree completely. That's been our goal for the past 2 years. And every time we seem to be getting on track, we get hit with something else, but that's just what we're all faced with. So I would just say, Greg, keep doing, go about it that way. Justin, spend a little time if you want to see the questions and give feedback, because it's fine to do it here, but offline to give Greg a little direction.
Yes,
If you maybe
I want to see the question.
So help with that. And Bruce, we do appreciate your help on this also, because we are trying to do it as a team effort. So that makes sense, Craig, or?
Yeah, a question to Sam and Bruce. Which of you should I turn to just get the initial survey set up so that we all 3 organizations can send it out?
I would say to use the towns just because we don't have the accessibility that they do, and that would be the way to go, in my opinion, so you can see all the results.
And Sam, you would just need them to provide you the questions, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And we'll keep it as simple as possible for you.
I will adjust both the introductory message and the survey instrument based upon whatever's happened in recent times quickly and get it to all of you or whichever of you want to weigh in. What I'd hope is we don't wind up with what we did last time, which is we gave everybody a week to get feedback in and no feedback came in. So we ought to move it if we get it out and see if we can't get a certain end date, and then by then get the survey out and going.
Yeah, I have enough faith in what you've already put forth and such with Justin's thing. So I'd rather get it moving forward than waiting for all the different feedbacks and such, because we just don't know what next week's going to bring. So, okay, we're all set. Let's get some feedback, and then all of a sudden something else comes our way. So I just would rather just proceed. So, and just send it to us, but really just know that you have the go ahead to go, you know, to go forward with it. So helpful.
Yeah, I think that I can follow that, and Sam, I can work with you on getting it out once we've got it.
Well, you send it to me and I will post the survey questions on a survey, and then I'll have a link. And that link can be made available to anybody.
Okay, and then the link I'm suggesting would go out from all three of our organizations, Downtown Mystic, the Greater Mystic Chamber, and our EDC one, and that way we've got the maximum chance of getting a response. And we can sponsor it from all three of us.
What's good is that once we have a link, anybody can send it out. They can
Very
use
good.
social media. Every channel that we have can be used.
Perfect. All right. So now we're going back to the real elephant in the room is the mask mandate.
Bill,
Oh,
I
sorry,
think,
Paige, yeah.
Bill, sorry, I think
Go ahead.
Stephen had a question. He's got his hand up.
Did not see Steven's hand up. Sorry, Steven. There you go.
Oh, no. Hi, how are you? No problem. I was on the phone earlier and I couldn't get the thing to unmute. I don't know how usually it's like *6, but it wouldn't work. So couldn't jump in, but finally got home and got on the real machine here. I was just going to chime in with, well, I guess really, it's really one point. On base, our biggest challenge is labor. I mean, we have a shortage of folks to operate our MWR facilities, the gym, restaurants, even daycare, and other facilities. So I think that's a very common problem in Connecticut, and I can tell you that it's nationwide. We just took about a month ago, we took a week and a half long trip all the way down to Florida in the vehicle, and we stopped at many restaurants along the way, and every one of them was short of help, to the point where a lot of restaurants, they don't even have the dining room open anymore, like fast food type places, and they're all just having a terrible labor shortage. So that's just a huge issue, and I know that's happening here. I've seen different ads here on Facebook for different local businesses, and it's a real problem, and I don't know what the answer is. I just wanted to throw that out. Thanks.
Thanks, Steven. Yes, I'm sure that'll be another topic that comes up. So on to the new business, which is what we've already been discussing anyway, but the Groton mask mandate kind of came about and caught me a little bit by surprise as others. I heard it from a third party and I was like, I never heard that. And then when I researched it, my understanding is it came about from the city of New London and the town of Groton and the city of Groton. And they did it in midweek. And as far as I know, no one was aware of it. As being an employer in town also, I wasn't aware of it. So, and I know what we've pursued with it. So it has created a lot of confusion. And as our Craig brought up the thing, some businesses that thought they were made that turn of normalcy have kind of had it, halted a little bit from perceptions. And there's not much we as an EDC can do about that. They actually implemented this. But like we did way back last year, it was probably our best effort of outreach. I think it behooves us as the EDC to go out again to those lists of primarily with the restaurants that we focused on, but I had some non-restaurants, but to do an outreach again, to you know, these are what the town printed up that were in our package, and just to go out and make them aware. And as I said, EDC has nothing to do with that. This mandate was put into place. But I think we could at least answer some questions to that. You know, we have the Q&A in the package and such. Because the other correspondence I got, which was from Michelle from, and as Craig said, he had spoken to her. You know, she's on Main Street in Mystic, and she's trying to abide by this, and she's getting feedback that, oh, no one else is doing this. Well, you know, I think it just behooves us to do that outreach again, and to do the same thing we did before. We're not going to be giving masks out this time because I think everyone's pretty well situated with them, but just to reach out and say, hey, we hear you. And then we can take the feedback at that point in time. Because I'm sure we're going to get the same type of feedback that we just heard from these two is, I want to do this. I think I'm all for it. How is it enforced? Those types of questions too. This is hurting my business. All that stuff is very important for us. That's what goes to John Burt. That's what goes up to the council. That's the information that we can flow up. And the only way we can collect that really is when we do face-to-face or get them to go to our webpage and tell them, hey, you have that. That's a great thing. Put it in there as a comment. Because once they go into our Explore Groton and put that comment in, we can capture their information and then keep them in the loop on anything that comes out. So it's really what we've been trying to do for as long as I've been on the commission. I think we did a really good job last year with it, but then all of a sudden we didn't have that, you know, goal in mind anymore. And we've kind of have gotten away from it before, and it's more one-off communication. So I'll open it up to anyone who has comments on that. Justin.
Just at our restaurant, we did a printed sign in large bold letters. Per town of Groton ordinance, masks are required for entry. And I think if we had something universal, it doesn't have to be on the poster stock that we did with the last ones, but something that like it's consistent at every Groton business, restaurant, grocery store, deli, nail salon, like every type of store. Like if we're at least consistent as a town. And it has made a difference, me having that sign in the door, because I've seen so many people turn around when they walk up to the door, go back to their car and get a mask. That's all.
Thanks, Justin. You know, the only thing I would say about the one that the town did put out, it is not reflective of that this is the town mandate. It's kind of a please wear a mask, and they got the ledge light. And I think there was a good point that Greg brought up is like ledge light is a region, and you know, how come other, so maybe we need something a little bit more, but that would come from the town, I think, not from us, how that's worded. Is that correct, Paige?
That's correct. There are actually two signs. I thought we had both in the packet, but one is kind of that soft sign, and the other one is definitely harder. And you know, when we first learned about this, our first reaction was, okay, well, we did the poster last year, maybe we need to do something. And then we learned that one had already been developed. So I think the second sign is the one that I believe Groton expected businesses to put up, saying this is a local order and masks are required indoors. So we would actually state at this point in time, that's the one that should be used. Really is a question of what the EDC wants to do in terms of distribution or not door to door. And I think we've had recent communication from some businesses saying they really want that hard copy. Sending it out digitally, that's one thing, but maybe these businesses don't really have the ability to generate something that's nice, that's going to be it's going to withstand a little bit of time and that looks good. Maybe they want that hard copy.
Well, and you can't do a face-to-face if you're doing it online. So that's why I would like everyone to go out and as I said, Lauren can send out the list, but I think it's important if the 10 or 20 people that we have on a list, it didn't take me that long. Just to go out and do another face-to-face again, saying, hey, we know this came out, everyone's a little confused, but we want to make sure you have a sign, because I know in my office, the big thing is, do I have to enforce this? I have a sign up, but who's enforcing this? And in the Q&A, it says, oh, the police can enforce it. Well, the police aren't coming around. Who's complaining to the police? So the business owners have questions about that stuff also. It's not like it's a governor mandate, but whatever. Craig, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think, or I see three different issues here. One is if there's a town mandate, as there was this time, for the future, what can we do to make sure that if there's a mandate, we help the town to know, all the businesses know, because they don't know, and they still don't know today. As I walk through, and it sounds like Bruce walked through, there's all kinds of variation. And so we need to have a mechanism so this doesn't happen again, because they're real frustrated out there. So that's one issue for retrospective, looking at how do we not let this happen again. Second issue is how do we provide help now that it is out there? And in keeping with our business outreach, I think the model of going out and reaching out to the respective businesses with a common sign, making it easy by giving them a piece of paper, doesn't have to be poster board, but something that makes it really easy to do this, and getting to the commonality of everyone having the same message makes it so much easier, particularly if it says there's a mandate, because in part from my conversation with Michelle and others, having the backing of knowing it's a requirement makes it so much easier for a store or restaurant to say, this is the rule here, and so we need to do it. And it's not me personally deciding that that's what you need to do. So I'd suggest that we create a business outreach effort by all of us. And I know from even talking to Michelle, they're getting so inundated with emails and messages and so on, they may or may not get it. And so a blast of an email is not sufficient. It takes something more. And so how do we help? The third issue is not necessarily accepting George's view that everybody should know that every little municipality and town has their own thing going, particularly as closely aligned as Stonington and Groton are in Mystic. Do we really have to accept that that's the way it goes, or should we be making an effort to make sure that at least these two towns work together more in order to have a common message? Because the discussion with Michelle was, I am seeing more businesses on this side of the river do something, but now we've got the other side of the river and people just cross the bridge and they're doing something else. And she was frustrated that she's trying to organize an effort now to push the town of Stonington to have a common view. I recognize they have different authority, but is there something we could do? Maybe the Mystic Chamber gets involved as well. Maybe our towns get involved, but is there anything we could do to bring some commonality to approach so that businesses don't wind up competing with each other just based on which side of the bridge they're on? Today, it might be the bridge or the mask mandate. Next month, it might be something else. Many efforts downtown Mystic area are collaborative on both sides. Is there anything we could do to cause the towns to work more together rather than leaving this as everybody is independent?
Thanks, Greg. I mean, and I'll tell you the truth, I think that how it all came about was it was New London, And then Groton City, Groton Town said, well, if it's new, because of the co-mix of people, we should have a little consistency, but it didn't go across the board. So, Michael.
So a couple things. Recently, I did an informal survey in the Groton Community Forum, asking about, because one of the things with people who object to masks, about them, because they're going to stand in your store and they're going to say, I hate masks. But the people who want masks stay home because they're worried about the numbers. They're worried people aren't going to wear masks. So they just don't go out. They don't call business and say, hey, Justin, I would have come to your restaurant, but I'm not sure people are wearing masks. So I'm going to stay home. They just stay home. And it was a small sample size, so not scientific, but 20% said they were reducing how much they went out because they were worried people weren't wearing masks. So something to be aware of is it's not just masks drive people out of business. Lack of masks drive people out of business, and ambiguity keeps people out of business. I also have a sort of unique perspective because I drive Uber on weekends, and we're talking about stores with 3 or 4 people in them. But if you go out to some of our finer recreational establishments in the evening, there will be 150 people with no masks. Like if you go to some of the bars and nightclubs down in Mystic at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night on a Friday, you've got people traveling in from a 500-mile radius to gather in large quantities without masks. So it doesn't really matter if we get people to wear masks in the Army Navy store if we're not going to be enforcing it where they're gathering by the hundreds after traveling from all over New England, New York, Pennsylvania, wherever. And for individuals, they don't, most people visiting have no idea that Mystic's not a town, let alone that the river is a border. And so they're going to be really confused when the rules change when you cross the river. So that's definitely an issue. But I think it's something to, 2 things to keep in mind. One is for businesses to realize that letting people know that mask mandates will be enforced in this business may draw some people out of their houses to come to the business. And also that if we don't do anything about bars and night spots with masks, then nothing else really matters because it's all going to spread there anyway.
Bruce.
Thank you. So it was suggested a little bit earlier about the chamber being they could post the rules and people could go there to see what's going on. And our executive board, they're somewhat split. I mean, I think that we a few weeks ago, we sent out at the request of the first selectman in Stonington, a note about strongly recommending masks, but there wasn't a mandate, and there was some wording in there and some debate within the chamber of whether or not we should send that out. And we did send it out on behalf of the first selectman, but we had several chamber members complain to the executive team that they couldn't see that it was not from us. We were just sending it out as a request from the town, and they didn't want to be told by the chamber what to do and what not to do. And so from our standpoint, we're happy to get information out there, but we want to make sure that we kind of toe the line of the fence of, not having really an opinion, but just being a purveyor of information for people in a way that that people understand that we're not, it's not our mandate. We're not telling the businesses what to do. We're just telling the businesses what their town is telling them to do or asking them to do. So I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. Paige.
Thank you. I just a couple of points. I thought that was an important nuance, what Bruce just said. And I think EDC members, it would not be your role in going door to door to be certainly an enforcer. And where there is ambiguity, I don't know that it's necessarily our role to attempt to try to interpret or give our own personal perspective. This is a town mandate that was imposed, and it's really about distribution, about the information. And I think there's, the Q&A, there's the information we already have in hand. We have the signs. But the last thing I wanted to add is we do have a stockpile of PPE. And I had mentioned that over the past few months that we were able to secure a grant that Groton has this. We have about 60 to 70% of what we're anticipating at this point in time. Things like masks, hand sanitizer, we even have respirators and duct tape and, you know, plexiglass, sheet plastic. We have a lot of stuff actually. That stockpile is to be used when we can no longer easily get PPE. You can walk into Ocean State Job Lot right now, up close and personal. You're going to see an end cap right in the store. They have tons of masks. The same with a lot of retailers. So we're not in short supply. However, we do need to distribute. We're moving into colder weather around the corner, and we have lots of masks. And I just float this. We would be able to allow some of the masks from the stockpile for business use if we were going door to door. And the last thing the businesses want is the government saying, you know, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. But if you go in and say, I'm giving you something, information, paperwork, masks, even though they may not need them, I just float that out there in the event people are inclined to try to walk in with an olive branch. We have significant boxes of masks, and I could make those, the town of Groton could make those available to EDC members if it would make your job easier in going door to door.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know if it'll make it easier, but I think it's nice to have them in hand and saying, hey, if you have someone that doesn't have a mask when they get here, you can hand them a mask so they can come in and use your establishment. So because I think that's the concerns I've heard is you're just, but inadvertently the mandate is discouraging people to go into certain businesses that have the signage up, and that's, I'm not here to make an opinion on it. That's just what I hear and see. So Justin, your hand up, or is it that wasn't put down before?
All right.
Hi.
Two things. I completely agree with Craig. The email thing might make me a bad person. I open maybe a quarter of the digital files I get in email. And the second thing is the face-to-face makes a huge difference. And then Paige stepping in with show up with a box of masks as well. And I will buy the Scotch tape, because whenever a charity shows up and wants to hang a poster on our door, I'm like, yeah, you put it up. I want you to put it up. And they bring their own tape. I'll buy the tape for anyone who wants to go to businesses to help them put up a sign and bring them masks. And the second thing is, and Bruce and Sam, this really applies to the two of you. In the past year, I've realized, and I've had no one has been able to argue with me on it. Mystic has become the largest tourist destination in the state of Connecticut. And that's pretty substantial. That's, I think there needs to be a little more unity between Groton and Stonington because of the split of the village, which is beyond our control, and that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, Justin. Paige, your hand back up again.
You're on mute, Paige.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I was reminded that this question is Bruce. that the Mystic Chamber, I believe, had recently handed out some masks and maybe some hand sanitizer. Just curious to know how did that go? What was the reaction?
Yeah, thanks, Paige. I was going to say that we did offer it up. We had probably 10 businesses come in and pick up masks and hand sanitizer, and we still have a case and a half of masks left. So we're certainly happy to distribute to anyone who may need them. We're right downtown. So anybody who needs masks, feel free and spread the word that we have them in our office and they're free. I also was going to say something, but I don't recall what it was. So I'm getting old.
Thanks, Bruce. We all are. So this is this is how I want to proceed. Because before, I'm going to have Lauren send out the reminder list, because I'm sure no one has the list that they had originally. Also, the signs, I mean, I don't think we need to go with the poster boards again. You know, let's save a little bit of cost on that. But if we can have Lauren print up the same way we did last time, and she can print up the number you need to hand out with maybe some masks to go along with it. I think we were doing 5 masks per business last time. Was that maybe it was 5 or 6, whatever.
It was 5.
Okay.
It was 5. This go around, they're different masks. So it would be a different approach.
Well, whatever we want to give per, which is great. We could also refer over to the chamber that if they need additional masks, just, you know, from that standpoint. But what I want to do is the same way we did before, is it's Thursday. So you pick up, you know, let's give Lauren a little bit of a heads up time to do it. So if we pick them up by next Thursday, and then the following week have all these things, you know, to at least do a face-to-face with all the businesses on your list. And I would appreciate any feedback. But the one thing we discussed, which is probably the most important thing about these face-to-face things, is please tell them to go to the web page, even to give the feedback you're receiving verbally. You know, when they say, "Oh, I don't like the mask," I'm not here to determine whether you like the mask mandate or not. I'm here but any of those comments we can capture. So that's something that you can go to the counselor or someone and say, "Hey, this is the feedback we're getting." And I don't care what it is. It may be on something completely different, but make sure we use that. And Paige, if we can, I don't know, is when we do the sign, if we can put that Explore Groton, so we have it right on there, because that's how you know, when you hand them something and say, "And this is the place to put your comments," you point to it, it might stick in their head. Just a little sales aspect of it, because that's our biggest challenge, is getting feedback, getting what we're trying to do with whether they're forums, the reach outs. You know, we're not getting responses, and it's very frustrating that we keep on doing these things, but we're not getting what we're looking for, is really to have that list to be able to go out and contact them when we want to have a questionnaire go out and say, "What's on your mind?" Stuff. We just don't have a real good comprehensive list still. So I would implore everyone to do that. So that'll make sense to everyone. Thank you. Okay, enough about mask mandates.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure, Craig.
Up.
Yep, Craig.
I appreciate the support of getting our outreach effort behind helping the businesses through this. We've still left open the one issue that Justin and I both commented on, and it was also in the 2 letters that we got, which is the difference between the 2 towns, and whether there's anything that we could or should be doing to try to help the 2 towns to work together on approaches, rather than not, it's to have people walk across the bridge, or to have businesses on either side of the bridge competing with each other using, "Well, you should come to me safe. No, you should come to me because you don't have to wear a mask." I don't think we're doing our businesses any favor. Of course, I have a healthcare bias, and so you might guess where my direction would be. But that said, I don't think the businesses are appreciating having different approaches by just walking over a bridge.
And I agree with you. We could debate those things all day long. maybe if we can get more feedback to John, he can make the call to the first select woman or his counterpart in Stonington, but that's really, unfortunately, ours stops at the bridge. This is the easiest cure of this is the governor comes out and does a mandate across the board. And that's what I hear the most feedback. Why do I have to listen to the town when the governor's not doing it? I'm not here to debate those things. This is what it is. So that's really what we have to use. But I agree with you, Craig, completely. But that's the way. Sam.
Yeah, thanks. Just to reiterate what you were saying about building our email list. So we're looking to build the email list, and we're also looking for comments. So you can direct them to the website and they can join the email list there. Then we'll get their email. You can ask for their email and maybe they'll give it to you, or maybe they'll have it on a card or something they'll hand to you or give you their personal email. Or you can give them a business card and ask them to email you, and then you'll have their email. So any one of those is going to help us build the lists so that moving forward, as this list grows, it's easier to get feedback almost real time by sending out a survey to this list of the people that, actually recognize your name. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Sam.
Actually, Craig, to your point about Stonington, it's actually the CCOG last month, the Southeastern Council of Government, collectively stated that they are going to go forward with a mask mandate, or they are recommending for across the board for a mask mandate. So the council already agreed to do it for this region. But again, it's back to Stonington's council, their own council deciding what they want to do. So, we're kind of a loggerheads with that issue.
Yeah, many towns have varying opinions. And as I said, I concur, but I just don't know where we can do what we can do on this. So I would like to go forward. Let's get the bearers of it is get the signs out, get the feedback from them, collect the emails so we can, if there's a lot of comments on it, they will listen. That's a given, but that's what our charge is. So Lauren will get that out. As I said, I gave her a little bit of time. I'm trying to be nice to her, but she's nice to us. So, but that's basically part of my chair report, because that's been the majority of stuff that I've been hearing across the board when I speak with businesses, and all those issues that come up about how come Ledger, how come here, it's definitely out there, but we need a place to be able to funnel that into. The one that really concerns me more as a business side is when I have a business owner, a gym owner, and it's actually hurting his business real time, whether they're members saying, I don't want him to exercise or do that with masks on, and they can go to the Y across the river. Now that's real feedback that I think people need to hear that put this forth.
So we this mask issue is going to go on. We have a South African variant that's going to show up, and now there's a third one called Mu, and maybe Craig.
Mu down in Colombia.
MU, or is it Colombia?
That's where it's out of, but it's Mu is the Greek. We're going through the whole Greek alphabet, so that's
there you go. So it is what it is.
Exactly. Paige, staff report.
All right, we've already talked about the mask mandate. It's obviously something we've been trying to come up to speed on for the past couple of weeks. There is a long-term recovery committee that Groton has, and we have significant representation on that. We meet, I'd say bi-weekly now. Had a meeting last night. People were pretty excited to have basically $8.6 million come to Groton in two different halves. But finding out how we're going to distribute to address our needs, that's really been the challenge. But we actually have a process that was put forward last night. Committee seems pretty favorable in conducting a needs assessment first, and then moving into what we call buckets and priorities, and allocate certain funding to each bucket, and then actually have projects, initiatives submit applications. And then the committee will review those, and also the council will do the allocation later on. So there is a plan of action and how we're going to deal with the American Recovery Plan monies. I've already talked about the PPE stockpile. Again, it's not to be used as a replacement for normal operating supplies, but when and if we have a shortfall, we're trying to be prepared for that moment if it comes. In terms of marketing and initiatives, we have basically contracted with a community engagement platform named Bang the Table. And it will be used to help us in our needs assessment process with the ARPA monies, but we also envision using it for all future projects and initiatives to try to get more feedback from the community in a dynamic form. And it's basically a survey mechanism on steroids. And it'll help us really gauge what the community at large thinks, you know, what the majority of the people think. And hopefully that'll help us with future projects and also in setting policy moving forward. Shoreline menus, we were advised, I know Lauren Post has been in touch with them. Apparently there'll be a meeting on September 13th. Hopefully they can launch this delivery service in Groton shortly. Previously mentioned about Groton housing studies. We envision sometime in October having a public meeting at which many boards and commissions would be invited. People can learn about the incredible demand for housing. We're down to these days 3% vacancy rates with our apartments, which is extremely low, which is driving price escalations for basically inferior product. And at the same time that we're having ramp ups with EB and Pfizer. We've definitely heard from Pfizer directly that they're having a real problem, that their workforce is really challenged in getting here in a timely way and finding housing that is needed by them. We've heard the same thing from EB. So October, we're going to do this big release and the reports will be made available to the public at the same time. In terms of public property redevelopment, no real activity on Mystic Education Center as since the Planning and Zoning Commission advised staff they do not want to head in that particular direction. So we're somewhat in a holding pattern. Groton Heights, there was a presentation to the COW on August 24th from Rich Hine and also me and other staff. Looks like we're getting that project closer to the finish line with land agreements. Sealy School, we have a site plan in hand that's being reviewed. I believe the time frame on that for construction is later this year, probably winter time. Colonel Ledyard School, redevelopment inspections are being done by the developer. He's definitely eager to advance that. I think that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Going on to our liaison reports. Aaron, you're a little quiet. Anything to share?
Thank you for having me, guys. I submitted my report. I think the only thing I'll share, and I think it's pertinent, especially after last night's rain, is during the storms and how we fared. So with the tropical storm on Sunday, sorry about that. With the tropical storm on Sunday, we did pretty good throughout the storm, but we did lose about 30% of our customer base. But we had them all back up and running by midnight or so. And last night we lost some customers as well with the heavy rain and some wind. But we reached full restoration by around 9:30 in the morning today. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Jason, Jill, which one would like to go first?
Oh, me. Okay.
Hi, Jill.
So, hi. So for the RTM, we met on August 11th. The RTM approved a pass-through of a grant for, Children's First, Groton. So that went through. They also approved the sale of the purchase and sale agreement for Wolfbrook Properties, which is on Ledyard Road. And then There was a lot of concern the last time that town property sales came to the RTM. And so there was an approval of a new rule that stated that the RTM shall not decide on the sale of town-owned property without the knowledge of the appraised value, preferred and allowed use, and probable sale price. There was some concern about RTM kind of being seen as a pass-through and not getting the information that they needed prior to being asked to vote. There was also discussion about if it needed to go to executive session so that it wasn't, wasn't a conflict that could happen also, but that did pass. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Jill. Jason?
Yeah.
I said thank you, and
Oh,
Jason.
thank
The City Economic Development Commission has a couple of community engagement events coming up. The first on the 21st of September at Thames View Park. If you're not familiar with that, it's formerly known as the Lower Costa property or the Upper Costa property. I think the event's going to be on the upper half above the road. It's the property immediately south of the waste treatment facility. And we'll be doing a presentation about Thames Street, including some history of Thames Street and the development that's gone on throughout the years, and some proposals of some things, ideas that are out there for what to do in the future. And then to kind of highlight that, a month later, on the 22nd of October, Ninigret Partners is an organization we've been working with. They are going to, they're going to be activating the space is the term that Sierra Patrick used. They're going to be taking the Lower Costa property, Thamesview Park, and dressing it up in a way that you won't recognize it. It'll look different. It won't necessarily be the way we're going to transform it, formally for the future, but they're going to dress it up in a certain way that'll make you think differently about that park, differently about how it could be used. So if you happen to drive by on the 22nd of October, you're going to go, what is going on at Thamesview Park? And is the city going to leave it that way? That's wild. What are they doing down there? And it's just a way of getting some conversation sparked about what could be. And Ninigret Partners will be active on the site that day with some presentations about things that they prepared, some possibilities for the use of the space. So we're trying to spark some conversations on what to do with Thames Street. And we're starting with that city-owned property there, Thamesview Park. So that's all I have to report.
Good stuff,
I'm going
Jason.
to
Thank you.
actually tag onto that. I'm going to tag onto that. The city just recently accepted a grant from the state that will do an ADA compliance of that park. If anybody's been down there, it's very steep to get down. And they also accepted a grant for an 8-slip dock as well as a ADA compliant kayak launch. So there is some work being done on that park.
That's great news. I'll tell you, I've always said Thames Street's a diamond in the rough. When we just get the right people behind it to move it, you start with one little acorn and let it spread off from there. I've actually sent a lot of people looking for homes to the Groton City area because of that, saying, hey, don't be surprised. So good for you guys. Anything we'd ever do to help also, Jason, please, bring it forward to us. So we really do want to be more collaborative between the two EDCs. We have a lot of commonality with that.
Yeah, message received. I appreciate that.
Hey, great. Hi, everybody. I did send in a written report. I didn't see it in the email. I don't know if it got sent out or what, but one did get sent in there on Monday. So maybe it needs to get sent out again or something. I don't know if Lauren got it. But just a couple of quick updates. We had our pre-construction meeting on, when was it, Monday, Tuesday, on the water taxi dock. So that's moving forward, and construction should start, I think they said November timeframe, give or take, and it should be done, by springtime. So that's exciting that all the ducks have gotten in a row on that project. So that's great. The Nautilus is going to be going into the dry dock about the same time. So it's actually perfect timing because they won't be in each other's way. So that's great. There's going to be an event to kind of shove off the Nautilus to its repairs, demoored and bring it up the river. as well. So if you know, keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure if they finalized the date yet, but that's going to be a rather large event, which might be something you might want to go to. Let's see. We have currently, you may have seen it in the news, but kind of a neat thing. We have the French submarine Amethyst at the base right now, docked at the pier, and their crew and a lot of the crews from our boats are having a lot of interesting interactions. They had a soccer game, and they're going to do some trips and some other things. So that's kind of neat to see the French submarine on our shorefront. And I guess other than the stuff I've written, the other thing I'll just mention quickly is these IGSAs that we're working on, these intergovernmental service agreements, something I've been working a lot on recently. Adam had started this before I came, but we're moving forward on a few. And just to report, we're actually going to be working with Groton, hopefully. I've been working with Greg Hanover. Your town is kind of unique in that you do a lot of your own paving, which is not common. Most of the time it's always subbed out. So we might be able to utilize you to do some paving on the base. And also you have a sign shop, make, you know, signs, stop signs, yield signs, all kinds of signs. So we might use your services for that. It's an interesting program where the Navy can contract with local communities to help provide services or materials to the base. And it can go the other way too. We can also provide services and materials back out to help the town. So it's great for both. It's easier for us to purchase things that way. We don't have to go through the whole normal purchasing agreement, purchasing, you know, doing bids and all that. And it's good for you because you can get some revenue and keep the guys busy maybe when they're not so busy or something like that. So there's a lot of good you know, advantages both ways. We're also working with or looking to work with Groton Utilities as well to do some you know, hydrant testing, some water testing, maybe some repair work, and something else there which is escaping my mind, but some different projects there. So and we're looking at some other partnerships as well. So it's exciting to be working on that. So that's all I've got in case you anything else, unless anybody else has any questions.
Thank
Oh,
you,
Stephen,
George.
thank you. Stephen, how long is the French sub or Frenchies going to be around?
I believe it's here till Friday.
Oh, okay.
Just yeah, I think it was like Monday to Friday or something like that. Few days.
So I want to piggyback on what Aaron got interrupted about Groton Utilities. So on September 12th, Groton Utilities is sponsoring a Groton City Brew Run. And maybe you could convey that to the base as well, if any of them are interested to participate on this event. I know Bill is waiting to have his session with the brew, and maybe Jason would like to do the run as well. So maybe you want to share some information back to your folks at the base to let them know. It's on September 12th. It's sponsored by Groton Utilities.
It's a run, you said? I didn't hear the beginning.
Brew run.
Brew run, okay. Brew run.
It's
like a pub
If you
run?
can send me, you
5K.
give like a little flyer on it or something, if you can send that over to my email, I can definitely try and get that disseminated out to some extent. Do you need help on that, or obviously you're looking for participants, but you need help as well?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of, I mean, we consider the base as a contiguous part of the town and the city. So I believe Jill could probably forward you something more pictorial than my email that you could share with your folks. And then at least we have more service members. That'll be a wonderful site anyway.
Yep, we can definitely get that
handouts.
out. We also have a whole, I don't say department, a group that puts together volunteer groups too. If you have an event where you need some help.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, the sailors often will go, you know, you can get.
Yes, so the brew run needs some volunteers. So I just saw the email today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just
So
get
they
that.
do need
I might be a little bit
volunteers.
late to round people up for this, but in the future, I mean, I can try, but in the future, if you need help for an event like that, you know, let me know and I can get that forwarded over to the proper channels, because sometimes the sailors want something to do on the weekend, and they often do get involved in different community events. So
thank you.
That. Yep.
Thank you,
Is
George.
your
Thank you,
email
Stephen.
address- I'm sorry to interrupt. Is your email address on your liaison report?
Yes, I believe it's
Okay.
on the bottom.
I can send you that information.
Yes, it's on the bottom. Yep.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other business before the commission? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I have a sufficiently strong belief that the two towns should be working together, that since we left it, I think that there was nothing we could do. I will probably take it on personally to see if I can do something to prompt people in discussion. George, if there's a way to tell me what the CCOG connection is that I could use to do that, I'd appreciate it. I will not do it, I guess, in my EDC hat role, although I might reference that I am a member of the EDC, but make it clear it's as an individual citizen. But I think what we're doing is, in terms of supporting businesses, is insufficient unless we help the businesses to work together and don't set up a dynamic where they have to battle with each other over rules.
Yeah, and I concur with that, Craig, and I would encourage you as a non-EDC, but I guess it's not that we're powerless, is that my job is to give all that feedback to our town leaders to say, you should be doing this, because you're right, it doesn't make sense. When it comes to other issues, not other than mandates, I'm all for reaching out across the river and working as one, because Mystic is a village that we're all kind of part of. So I agree completely. Yes, Steve.
Oh, just one quick thing. I just wanted to mention, I live up here in Farmington. It's a bit of a haul down to work. But one thing that we do here, or have done here, I think COVID probably put the squash on it, like a lot of things. But one thing they've done here in the past is they've had a business breakfast. And they have it early in the morning, and they have it at one of the local restaurants. And they open it up, obviously for all the business owners to come. And they used to get a fairly good turnout. And what they would have is each of these breakfasts, the town would say a few words, but they would have a guest come in, like maybe an accountant or a lawyer, and talk about some new laws or new mandates or new tax issues or whatever. And it was pretty popular. So I'm just throwing that out there. I know you were talking about ways to try and get some more interaction with your business community. That might be an idea. In the morning seemed to work best because most of the business owners could escape, for breakfast. But by the time lunch and dinner comes around, they're all too busy.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Paige. Thank you, Steve. Paige.
A couple comments. I guess I'll add to what Stephen just said. GBA used to do that often, and I have had some side conversations with Bruce, and I hope that someday we can get back to having some morning breakfasts with Groton businesses, because it actually did go a long way. My second comment, back to the Nautilus dock. I've mentioned it in the past, but it's taken a while. Sam was the one that actually wrote that grant proposal on behalf of the town, did the heavy lift for about $735,000. So it's taken a long time, but we're finally getting that constructed. And I do want to give some kudos to Sam. Thanks.
Thank you,
Well
sir.
done, Sam.
You bet.
Steven. Your hand still up, or is it just didn't put it down?
I guess I just left it up. Never mind.
Okay, that's fine.
Look.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.